Hi, everyone. So, the very second episode of Procurement Horizons, and I have someone very special today. When I started this podcast, I wanted it to be insightful, relaxing conversations with friends. And that's literally true today because who I have is someone I have known and admired since the last 25 years. That gives some indication of our age, but we'll make up for it with all our enthusiasm and energy. What I really admire about my guest today is her positive energy and humility. And it's been a joy to see her evolve as a leader over the last few years. So, welcome, Pooja, currently the director and category leader of AI PCs at Lenovo.
Thank you, Richa. Thank you for having me on your podcast. What a grand introduction. I haven't heard that before. So thank you. I really appreciate it. In fact, our paths have crossed again, right? So when you said 25 years, I did not even think about, it actually gives up our age. So for the audience, Richa is my senior from bachelor's in electrical engineering. Same field, remember? And we shared so many things during that time. I used to go to Richa all the time asking for advice,
I
career
thought it's
advice.
the other way around.
Oh, that's good. But since it's a mutual.
Pooja, I thought would be an excellent guest because she hasn't worked in procurement, but she works in areas that procurement teams are always interested to know about because we are there to serve our stakeholders. And she's been in product teams, she's been in supply chain roles. So that's why I thought the best person to tell us about her career path and her interesting journey would be her. Before we get there, I also want to note that there are elements of her journey and skills that she's built along the way, like strategic thinking, storytelling, and collaboration that would also be some focus of this conversation. So, Pooja, tell us about your journey and all the twists and turns that have happened along the way that have made you the person you are today.
Absolutely. And again, I'll speak for probably for the last decade or so. I'm a product leader at Lenovo. I'm in a PC industry and I have over a decade of experience in PC industry. Across various different roles. I started in product management. I moved to marketing. In between, I did some of the supply chain roles, mostly demand planning.
Mhm.
And then I moved back into product, focusing on new product categories. And
Mhm.
I didn't plan it this way, my career, but I've been really lucky to be able to be associated with launching new product categories and that to disruptive product categories. So across in the PC space, you can think about
Mhm.
desktops, workstations, your laptops. And I have been part of all those organizations and I have launched new product categories, whether you call them new form factors, new technology, new silicons, new ecosystem. So that has really helped me learn
Mhm.
about how do you launch the product, what's the concept, launching the product in the market, how do you plan it, and then of course through the end of life of the product. So it's been a humbling journey at Lenovo, and I really love what I do. So it's fun journey.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I mean, I can totally see the love and I've seen it not just for what you're doing now, I've seen it for anything that you've done over the years, that passion, that energy that's always there and it's so admirable. And what I also really like is how you have taken those opportunities, maintained that sense of optimism as you call it, and yeah, just being open to learn and experiment about whatever is coming your way and how that has shaped into a beautiful story of an end-to-end journey. Very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. No, thank you. Appreciate it.
So I would love to understand, and I've been so curious to know more about what are those building blocks of a strategy, that go into launching a new product and what happens after that launch. I'm sure that there's lots going on, lots of activity, energy. So how do you work through all of that?
Absolutely. So what I am currently doing is I am responsible to develop a new category on in PCs, and those are AI PCs. In simple terms, AI PCs, think of them as more powerful PC than a traditional laptop because now you
Mhm.
can actually run AI on the PC locally versus relying on the cloud. So it's more
Mhm.
faster, probably more secure, and it's more private, right?
Oh.
And you can also bring down the cost of the cloud computing if you can run things locally. So again, it's an inflection point in the PC
Mhm.
industry, or
Mhm.
I would say in any device industry, right? We are bringing AI to the devices now, thanks
Mhm.
to the compute. So when you launch these new product categories, and in Lenovo, I would say we have done various different ways, and in any industry, you would see some of the products would be just refreshes. Some of
Mhm.
them would be more clean sheet design. Similar technology, some of them, it can be around technology opening up new use cases or really solving customer pain points. So
Mm-hmm.
those are really innovative products. AI PC can be considered something which is very disruptive in the industry. So as you launch these new product categories, so think about, if I have to say, what are the important criteria? What's the
Mm-hmm.
recipe? I think timing is really important, right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
what's the right timing to launch a product?
Mm-hmm.
Um, some may argue we want to be first in the market. So you want to be time to market. The disadvantage sometimes of that is the overall ecosystem is not mature enough to support the product. So to really deliver the value to the customer, you need to have a very mature ecosystem. And we've learned that. One of my product, when we launched it, we had some challenges with the software ecosystem. So it took more time. And then we had competition. So I think it's the timing becomes important
Mm-hmm.
when you're launching. We have to think of it, can customer really use it the way we intend them to use?
Okay.
The other thing that is, I think, is important is, and that's something a product marketing manager comes into the play, even product management, where you have to really clearly articulate the value proposition of the product and figure
Mm-hmm.
out that product market fit, right? You can have a
Mm-hmm.
great product, nobody wants it. You can have a great market, but your product isn't right. So you have to think about, there is a demand, it solves a problem. You have a great, compelling product. How do I write that use case, or how do I write a compelling value proposition of the product? Who is
Mm-hmm.
this product for? Who are the right personas? We call them personas. That becomes really important to understand product market fit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, of course, everyone knows the go to market plan,
Yeah.
the four
Not
P's.
everyone knows.
So the four P's, right? Your product,
Okay. Okay. Yes. Yes.
promotion, placement. So I would say most of the marketer or product teams or business development
Mm-hmm.
managers would know that a good go-to-market plan is important when you launch a product, right? What's the right pricing? It's in a crowded placement. You need to be really understanding: are you cannibalizing a product? If you are, then what's the right pricing for the product? Would the customer pay for it? What are the right
Mm-hmm.
routes? What's the right distribution channel? Right? Programs.
So,
So
so
yeah.
that's marketing, but it is all coming together for the launch. So are you working closely with marketing, or is it something that your team
Um,
owns?
So it's basically in collaboration with various
Okay.
different teams.
Great. Yeah.
So that those are the really big ones, I would say, is
Right. The
important
building blocks.
elements.
I have heard timing, the value proposition, and then this whole go to market strategy. And I'm really curious about one thing you mentioned, which is the way it is intended to use. So, are there situations where that doesn't happen? I would probably just assume that that happens every time, but I'm sure there must be
No, actually,
exceptions.
see,
Yeah.
it's not a rocket science. Like for in our product side, like you have a laptop, people use it, and I'm in the business side, so people use it as a work device,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The question becomes sometimes, again, as product managers, products are our babies. We love our products. We are passionate about our product. We think it's the best, right? And
Yeah.
what we've realized launching these new product categories, we go with the assumption that this is the value that we are delivering to the customer. That, like, this is the killer feature,
Hmm.
right? How do you know it is a killer feature?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So, like, testing is important. One of the ways you can do it is you can do beta testing in a customer environment. You can get feedback
Mm-hmm.
from internal stakeholders. You can do
Mm-hmm.
like internal testing. Some people call it dog fooding program.
Okay.
So, really making sure that you're gathering inputs on how you are using the product, how this product is being used, and what are the features that is
Mm-hmm.
important to the user, to the focus group. I
Mm-hmm.
think it goes a long way, and
Okay.
especially when you're launching new products.
Okay, that's very insightful. Understanding all of those components as well, testing of it. And yeah, what I also really liked is that this whole process involves so much visualization and bringing together elements and putting them together that doesn't exist, and walking into shoes of different people, starting with the customers and then so
Yeah.
many different teams that you interface with.
No, that's true. I mean, it's fun. It's a fun process. You don't always get it right, but it's learning.
Yeah, perfection doesn't exist, and especially when it's such a large team with large organizations, that's always a challenge. Getting so many stakeholders to work together, it runs smoothly in many situations, but in situations it's dependent on everyone involved. It's just that there's certain timing or other pressures, a cost to keep in mind and whatnot. So yeah, but that will be interesting to know. You talked about this a little bit. Who are the stakeholders that you work with, and have you also had an interface with procurement? I asked this because I got experience working with lots of different product teams when we were launching products for retail. Just curious to know what's your experience.
No, absolutely. Again, Lenovo is a global company. We operate in 160 plus countries. So, and I am in a global, worldwide role. So think of it as our custom, like people we deliver to are sitting in these geographies, in these regions. So if you think
Mm-hmm.
about, we have key five regions serving these 160 plus countries.
Mm-hmm.
And what in a global role, and especially when you're launching new products, you really work with various different teams. Of course, your region stakeholders, product managers, business managers
Mm-hmm.
are one of them. You also work with product managers, your development quality team, the project
Mm-hmm.
managers who are working cross functionally with different functional teams. You work
Mm-hmm.
with them. I did not realize, but that's the most wonderful part, and that's what I really enjoy, because you
Mm-hmm.
get to see how everyone is contributing to it and how their roles are important in really getting this product launched and bringing to the market. Procurement plays a
Yeah.
very important role. You would see when you're launching products. I think they play a very important role in terms of making sure. Remember one, I told you one thing, which is the 4P pricing is important.
Right.
So I think getting the right cost
Mm-hmm.
on the parts from
Mm-hmm.
supplier
Mm-hmm.
is very important. My team doesn't directly work with procurement, but indirectly. And then
Okay.
there are times when we are negotiating, providing inputs on what should be the right price, the right
Mm-hmm.
cost, so that we can hit a
Mm-hmm.
particular price point. We can also provide inputs on competitive data to procurement and go back and forth. So it's like a collaboration between the teams. There are times when you're thinking about the sourcing strategy, right? So we really want to make
Wow.
sure it's there are multiple suppliers, it's single sourced, like whatnot.
What's so impressive to me, because it's music to my ears. That's what
What?
procurement tries to make everyone understand in organizations, and that hey, this is what we'll support you with. And like, even though you haven't probably directly worked, as you say,
Yeah.
but you have such a great understanding of what we do at the core. Yes, like sourcing strategy, that is kind of the start of how we think about vendor relationships. And then yes, negotiation, those RFPs, and until the contract management, that's what we are doing. And then yes, of course, when there are issues with suppliers, we tend to get involved. There's a lot of risk management aspects. So yeah, in a nutshell, I think you kind of nailed it, Pooja.
But have you, Richa, have you worked? I mean, it's a good question because again, I am not an expert in procurement, but
Mhm.
I know that when do I need to go to them, right? When do I need to go to my procurement guy and say, help me here because I'm not able to get to the price that I want, or I have an issue, I don't have
So
like,
I'll tell
have
you.
supply issue. What about you? Have you worked with product teams
I have, and I'll tell you, like, this is something that procurement is always going to ask you, that involve us early, no matter which
Mhm.
company. There are lots of changes in different processes, but that's one request I've seen that procurement makes across industries. And the reason for that is that sometimes, people have gone in so deep with a
Mhm.
particular relationship, and there could have been other ways to leverage a better value. And it's not necessarily always going to another potential vendor. It's just with the same vendor, but just how they think about the relationship is different. It's like a neutral party coming in who's not so close to what you're trying to do, in operations. So they bring that mindset towards just that relationship. So that's why it's important to engage procurement, and the sooner you do that, the better it is. But always, like in the roles that I've had, there have been situations where I haven't sourced something, but there was a critical issue with the supplier relationship, and we had to step in. Sometimes there are separate vendor management roles that some companies have, and sometimes I have also played that role of bringing in that, improving that partnership
Yeah.
relationship, along with a lot of other teams involved, of course. And so yeah, those are some of the areas where we help. So, Pooja, you mentioned about this global role, and I know how challenging it can be to be in those roles. I've done a few of them in the past, and managing so many people in different locations, different cultures, navigating that. Tell us about your experience with that and how you've established collaboration working with those different stakeholders.
So I worked in global role and I've also worked in a not like regional role in North America. So I would say global roles really change your outlook of how you see the company or how you work with people. And especially in a global organization like
Mm.
mine, where we're working with five different regions, big regions
Mm.
across the world. It's different cultures, it's different languages, right? So
Mhm.
having that patience of understanding and active listening is important.
Mm.
So again, it's wonderful. I think I've enjoyed global roles. The time zones can be really challenging, right? If you're working in a global role, the hours can be crazy. And what I've heard my boss saying that if you really are passionate about it, you will survive in this role. Otherwise, the hours with family becomes really challenging because we are up in the morning, we are working late at night. So that becomes a challenge. But I think one of the big thing on collaboration, which I learned very early on, is you have to have alignment on what your shared goals and responsibilities are. Because not only that I'm working in a global role, I'm also working in a highly matrixed organization, right? So there are
Mhm.
overlapping responsibilities. There are certain times you're not directly reporting to just one person. You are responsible for different leaders, right?
Mhm.
To lead results for different leaders. So I think that becomes tricky. One of the
Mhm.
examples that I would share
Mhm.
is it's interesting. Early on, there was one project that I thought that we should do, and many people told me, don't do it. We don't have resources. Too cumbersome, too risky.
Mhm.
We have never done it. And
Mhm.
for me, we have never done it is not the right answer. We don't have the resources, I get it, but we have never done it.
Mhm.
So we shouldn't do it. It tickled
I
me. So
would want to do it more.
so I'm like, listen, that is what's the worst that can happen? We're going to learn from it. So I think the one thing that I tried to do is because we didn't have enough resources to do something like this, I tried to gather people, get people who really want to do this, who believe in the project, like who believe this is something they would love to do. So it's
Mhm.
not your core job, but this is your side job, like a side project that you're working on. And how many people would sign up for side jobs and side projects?
Mhm.
So but then getting those people who really believe in it
Mhm.
helped. Of course, we faced challenges. Of course, we had many issues. Of course,
Mhm.
it wasn't perfect execution, but it was a recent success. We built on that project to deliver more of similar programs. But what was common was you need to believe in it. You have to have that alignment on what we are trying to achieve. Like shared goals and shared responsibility is really key to
That's
collaborating well.
that's
So
true. Yeah.
that was my big lesson on how do you collaborate in a very matrixed organization.
That is so true because sometimes we have those timeline pressures and people want to go really fast. But if you don't invest that time into having those shared goals and align it with everyone that's involved, I think you can't go fast really. So even if that takes time, I mean, I totally agree with you that that's really the place to think about. Yeah, that's been my experience as well. Another curious thing that I was thinking was what you mentioned about listening and self-awareness, because
Mhm.
that's so true. When you start working with different cultures, you start seeing, you get used to some very different people, you learn about new cultures, and you also start to learn so much about yourself in a very different way. And that's so
Yeah.
fascinating.
And I was thinking, as you said, listening, you are such a great listener. And you have things to share, but
Hmm.
you listen. Anytime I've called you, you want to know. You want to know
Yeah,
what's up.
I'm
You're
curious. You're right.
curious. You would listen. So I think that is important. And that's something you have to be intentional about. Like you have to remind yourself,
Hmm.
listen, you don't have an answer for everything. You need to listen and listen with intent, right? So I think
Thank you. I feel the same way about you. Whenever I'm sharing lots of boring big stories, I've never had so much acknowledgement, that I felt
we're
with
giving
you.
each other compliment here
That's
now.
why we we've been doing this for 25 years. So
Yeah.
yeah, and then the time zone thing, yes, I have gone through that, and you're right. You need to be super passionate about what you're doing because, and it's your main project, it's your side project because it's happening all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good, good. I know we have about a few minutes left. I have two more questions for you. I mean, I admire that you always have the courage, Pooja, to bring your authentic self and to share stories in whatever form, speaking, writing. So yeah, tell us more about that. Like, how does that play a role in your work as well as your life?
I mean, this is a skill which I think I want to continue to develop. I always say I'm bad at storytelling. Storytelling is important because see, it's all about. Have you thought about the great stories that evoke emotions? If there's a great storyteller who would tell you something, who's selling you something, but would make you excited about it. There would be some kind of an emotion that that person is triggering, and it becomes memorable.
Mm,
So I think from just my career, when I started as a product manager, so think about I am in this new country coming from India to
mhm,
US. There is a cultural barrier. I don't understand the culture. 2 years in, I am in a job where I'm a product manager and I speak good English. But again, it's a different, when you come here, you are also navigating, you're not as confident in your language as you were back then.
mm,
So that becomes hard. So as a product manager, I have a great understanding about my product. I know the specs, I know the features, I can talk about it. And I
mhm,
told my boss at that time, it was just amazing. And I said, I love everything about the product management. But when you send me to these customer briefings, I find it very boring and repetitive because I'm talking about the same product over and over.
no,
And he smiled at me and he said, "You know what? Because you're telling the same thing over and over again. You need to find your find say you need to evolve in terms of how you are speaking to them, and
mm,
it won't be the same pitch to every customer in a similar way, right?" And that was
mm,
the day. It was like 10 years
mm.
back, I would say. And now over the years, like
Wow.
being intentional about planning is important. Like if you're not that
Mhm,
excellent intuitive speaker, you need to plan what your story is. What is your who is your audience?
mhm,
What are you trying to address to them? Is there a pain point you're talking about? Can you tell it with a story? Can you share your own experience?
mhm,
Um, and then try to see if there is that excitement that you're able to generate. Like what type of emotion you want to generate.
mhm.
Um, it's a practice, and I am trying to
Wow.
see if I can
That
do it.
is such a thoughtful answer, you know. I like so many elements there. So writing like right from finding why you want to do it, you know, your personal reason.
Still,
And then yes, also that you confronted your own blind spot about you getting bored delivering the same message again, then finding out, learning more about, you know, the audience, and being very clear as to what matters to them and tying your stories to that. I think that's exactly what it's all about. And then yes, there's hundreds of formats that we can learn over
yeah,
time, but yeah, essentially we're all bad storytellers trying to work and become better at it.
yeah. I think it's all about, do you want to get better at it? Like, do you
Do
really
you
think?
want to get better?
Do you want to hone your story? Do you want to tell it in different ways?
Yeah, do you want to tell your story? I think that's the toughest one for everyone.
Yeah, so true.
Cool. So yeah, so on to our last question. Of course, like this has been so enriching. I think that's the word that that it has been. So what have been your key learnings, you know, as a leader, as a mom in your journey? And like I also specifically want to know, you know, like that transition from being an individual contributor to a team leader. How was that for you? And I'm sure like, you know, you made quite a few shifts as you took on all these new roles in your life. So tell us about that.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very power packed question. And I found myself very intuitive in terms of learning on the go. Um, the different situations require different types of leadership styles, right? So sometimes it is for when you're a pace setter, sometimes it's more around coach and play.
Mhm.
And you can be a leader in individual contributor role. You can be leader in a people manager role. It can be various different ways. As a women leader, I think for me the one thing that was always important
Mhm.
was confidence. You need to have confidence in yourself.
Mhm.
Nobody, you can't rally a team if you're not confident in what you do and what you want to achieve. That has always been important. And I was just thinking about this the other day,
Mhm.
and it's a very personal story, but I think this is going to resonate well with the audience also, because I was in high school and I went to my English teacher, and we were like, we were like looking at, you will have to appear for the board exams, which is the high school exams. This
Mhm.
is the way your name is written. Go check your name, right? So my name was written as, it was just my first name, Kumari Pooja, and I didn't have last name. And I was like, can I add my last name, my father's last name
Mhm.
here? And my English teacher looked at me, and I still remember, and she said, are you not enough? Like, why do you need your father's name? Or why would you, I don't know what mood she was in. Why would you need your husband name? Or why would you need your father's name? Are you not enough? And you know
Mhm.
what? Like, I'm like 16-year-old, and I'm like
Yeah.
looking at I am enough. I don't need the last name. It was
Wow.
probably not the right thing to do because you need the last name, it's mandatory. But I think the validation that I got from
Mhm.
the teacher that day, it
Mm.
sparked something,
Oh,
which was
wow.
like,
Mm.
I am enough, right? So,
Mhm.
so that means that that helped me. I don't know, that just helped me with the confidence that I needed. The other thing which I have learned over the time is, have you read this book? I'm sure you have. It is Brene Brown's book, Gift of Imperfection. And
Which
if
one?
you have
Gifts of
Gifts of
Imperfection? I've read Daring Greatly
yeah,
and one more, but not that one. Yeah.
I think it's a very short book, and
Okay.
it's not for business leaders. It's for
Mhm.
everyone. Like, you can read
Mhm.
it, whether you're a
Okay.
man or a woman, or it's such an interesting book. One of the things that I got from that book was letting go of perfection.
Mm.
When I was young, excellence was always like something my dad always said, give your best to whatever you want to do.
Mhm.
Um, and somehow that feeling of achieving excellence, I try to equate with perfectionism,
Mhm.
which is two different things. So over the time, like thinking that you cannot be like letting go of perfectionism is important,
Mhm.
because when you are a leader, you're managing, rallying a team, you can't expect perfection. You can't expect perfection from yourself, because it comes
Mhm.
in the way of doing different things, failing,
Mhm.
trying out, and especially when you're in this incubation new product space. So perfection gets in the way. That was something that still I try to remind myself, even
Mhm.
like at home. If it's not right organized, it itches me. Like, hey,
It does.
I need to do this. But I have to remind myself perfectionism is overrated. And then the other one I would say is, which is very important, and especially for women leaders, I would say, um, authenticity. Who you are, bring that with you
Mhm.
at workplace.
Mhm.
um, you don't have to emulate anyone. You
Mhm.
don't have to emulate your male peers. You bring your own unique self to work,
Mhm.
and that is important.
It's good that you have those values clear that, this is how I'll show up and this is what's important to me. I think personally, I have struggled a lot with confidence. In some situations, it comes across naturally depending on the environment. And in some situations, it's not so natural. I'm getting there. I'm not 100% there, but that makes a huge difference. I can see that now. And
I've always seen you confident. I don't know. Like, I've known you for
it
how
depends on
many
the
years?
person. Some
Yeah.
people see me as very confident, and when sometimes people start bringing me down, then I was not able to stop that. And
Yeah.
if I had just thought that I'm enough and I don't need to be a part of that conversation and I can walk away, and that came with age. That has come now, but it always comes. It comes late sometimes. So
No,
that's
I
what
see
I'm
that.
working on.
Yeah.
In all honesty.
No, no, I agree. It's not like if you had asked me this
Mhm.
question 10 years back, would I have answered it the same way? Absolutely not. You're
Mhm.
discovering yourself, you're
Yeah.
learning. And
Yeah.
when people say we need experience, like at that time, I would, why experience? I know how to do this. Like, but experience teaches you so many things. And one of it is your self-discovery. So I think
Mhm.
it's definitely a journey.
Definitely. And that the authenticity part is very true for women leaders. Like we have this certain feminine qualities, and we try to sometimes go the other way and try to come across as too masculine, and that doesn't work for us. I have been decent at authenticity. I think perfectionism is something that has been very strongly rooted. Something
Mm.
that I always try to, the good thing is I like contrasting things, the perfection, and I also like experimenting. So
Yeah.
they kind of take care of each other to some
Yeah.
extent, but
Yeah.
it's hard for me to overcome that perfection, whether it's at home or there. I also want to give breathing space to people around me, especially wherever I go.
That is a quality that more and more women have than men. The perfection. I don't know, perfectionism. Like, I've seen, I don't
Yeah.
know, I just see more women leaning towards just having the perfect home, the perfect family, the perfect work. I don't know. It's probably more women centric, and I'm trying to generalize it, but it gets in the
Could
way.
be. I think it has to do with a lot of way women are raised. I mean, and it's not, I've seen that it's not really culture dependent. In all of the
Yeah.
cultures, women tend to lean towards perfectionism.
Yeah.
And what helps with that, Pooja, is yoga. You've been pretty consistent. As my yoga teacher says, you can't be good at yoga, you can only be consistent. And you have been fairly consistent. I'm learning in my yoga class how leaning into a pose 1 second longer is helping you be less reactive, helping you get over your perfectionism, so many things.
I would definitely encourage to take time out. for ourselves to practice that.
Yeah, and it doesn't come naturally to all of us because sometimes we've had parents who always put their family
Yeah.
first rather than take care of themselves. But so excited for your what all is going to come in the future, Pooja. I am 100% sure that you're going to keep enjoying what you're doing and you're going to be successful. More confidence, more authenticity, and less perfectionism.
I love it. I love it. No, I think that's important. Now, thank you so much. It was really fun chatting with you. And when you
Thank you.
told me about your podcast, and I'm like, gosh, that's such an honor to be part of what you're doing. And I give you all the best for
Thank
whatever you
you.
do.
Thank you. That means a lot.